Adam Cole, Ruby Soho, along with CM Punk, are now all elite, but for how long? You see, now, well, not you see, but okay. Let me straighten out here for a second. Let me clear my thoughts. Okay, now, in case you guys have been paying attention to All Elite Wrestling, about 2 3 weeks ago, CM Punk debuted on Rampage, and actually about 3 weeks ago now, CM Punk debuted on Rampage, as in Chicago at the United Center, and basically got a hero's welcome and everything. And the question obviously was how well, not was, but one of the questions a lot of fans had, those that support AEW, support wrestling overall in general, despite what company you're a fan of, and those that don't like AEW because they feel it's just a niche company that is not long for this world, or the wrestling world, if you will. Um, so make sure my mic is adjusted here. Yeah, make sure. Yeah, but basically, you know, one question a lot of folks have is how long is his contract for? Basically, how long is CM Punk's contract for when it comes to All Elite Wrestling? And even though he says he's in there full time, he's there full time. The obvious question is, well, if you're there full time, what is the length of your contract when it comes to that full timeness? And this is the same question that's going to get asked of Ruby Soho, the former Ruby Riott in WWE, Adam Cole, who made his debut at All Out last Sunday, as well as Bryan Danielson, who made his debut almost immediately after Cole, at All Out on Sunday as well. Bryan Danielson being Daniel Bryan of WWE. The question obviously is, okay, if they're in it for the full-time gesture, how long are they going to be full-time? In other words, how long is a contract going to be for full-timeness? And that is a good question. That is definitely a good question. And honestly, I could see CM Punk, people like a Punk and a Daniel. I could see a Punk. What I'm trying to say is I could see a CM Punk and a Bryan Danielson being there for maybe a year and a half at least. And then maybe, hanging it up or transitioning to a backstage role, maybe. I could see Danielson, honestly, and, just based off what he said, very complimentary of WWE, I could see his contract coming up within a year, if it's a year or a year and a half or whatever, and going back to WWE in a backstage role, if you will. Because honestly, you cannot tell me that it's not awkward for Danielson and for Brie Bella, his wife. It's not. You can't tell me it's not awkward for them that he's now working with AEW and she's still connected with WWE. You can't tell me it's not awkward. Now, yeah, she gets to stay at home and not have to worry about traveling as much, as Daniel does, and the schedule does allow him to be at home most of the time, except for maybe Tuesdays except for Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and potentially Fridays. And that's actually it actually allows him to be there. Yeah, basically about Monday. It allows him to be there partially on Tuesday. It allows him to be home on Thursday, and if needed, it allows him to be home on Fridays. So it does open up the schedule because they're not doing many live events. I mean, they've been trying it out. They've been testing it out once in a while, but, they haven't been doing many live events just yet. But there's going to be a time when that opportunity is going to present itself. We all know it. We all know that's coming. But, for Danielson, it works out fine. So I'm looking at the fact that he's probably a 1 to 2 year deal, maybe a year and a half, with the possible option of resigning, or the possible option of, he's done his time there. He's helped establish, AEW as a prime time contender and someone to take seriously in the wrestling business and sports entertainment business, depending how you look at it. That I believe he'll either transition to a backstage role there, which would be fitting for him, or I could see him transitioning to a backstage role back in WWE. Because again, what really I think grinds a lot of people's gears that don't like WWE, and we'll talk about this later on in the future, another topic, is he was very complimentary of WWE, of Vince McMahon. He said a lot of positive stuff. And a lot of people loved that. There was actually a lot of fans that loved the fact that, hey, here we have somebody that WWE could have kept that seemed to be a WWE lifer, and he's now in All Elite Wrestling because he wants to explore these other options that are there, as well as go through the forbidden door when the opportunity presents itself. And, you know, he's not bitter. He's not bitter about it. I think that's a, yeah, he's not bitter. He's not bitter toward, well, basically what I'm trying to say is, what I'm trying to get at is, here's a guy that, again, this was something that was really looked at in a positive way by a lot of folks that WWE could have kept, made the decision after he saw the tribute AEW did for Brody Lee, the former Luke Harper, and they're like, and basically that's what helped him kind of, make his decision clear that he wants to try AEW. Here's somebody that could have stayed with them, but decided after what he saw what they did for Brody, he's like, I got to go there. I got to try that out. Saw the talent that's, available to him there that he can go against. Saw the fact that a forbidden door is being opened to allow him to compete elsewhere while he's still with them. And, something that gives him a schedule that's not so hazardous, on his health, which is pretty cool. It's actually pretty cool when you think about it. But, here's the thing. And my finger just hit the mic there. I do apologize. Here's the thing, though. Again, the question is, how long is this contract going to be? Because like I was saying, if it's a year and a half, maybe two, it could lend him to transitioning into a backstage role at All Elite Wrestling, or it could allow him to either re-sign for another year if he chooses to, if he enjoys what's going on, or if he feels he's done all he can, he'll probably, because again, as I was trying to say, you can't tell me it's not awkward for them, in a sense, maybe not as bad as some people would say it is. You can't tell me that, he wouldn't want to probably, end his career back in WWE. It's like WWE is who made him what he is, made him, the commodity he is more so than before. You can't tell me that after having maybe a year or two run in AEW, maybe even having a run as their champion, that he's not going to want to transition over to WWE or back to WWE, maybe in a backstage role, maybe a part-time role, who knows, just to finish out his career. Because again, what I was trying to get at earlier, before I lost my train of thought there, and I do apologize. What I was trying to get at is, he was very complimentary about them, Vince and all of them, about the entire company. And I know in a sense that kind of grind the gears of a lot of fans that are not particularly, I should say, very fond of WWE right now. So, it obviously kind of, from their perspective, having their gears grinded wrong because of what he said, basically to them points to the fact that he's going to go back. And he might. He just might go back. But he's looking at AEW as that opportunity that is presented to him to allow him to do what he wants to do. And then once he's done that, even if after a year and a half or so, he's going to go back to WWE. And WWE is going to see, how well possibly AEW treats Daniel. And they're going to be like, you know what? We don't want to lose him again. Let's give him exactly what he asked for and more so. Let's give him the red carpet. Let's give him the world. And that might be what happens. So we'll see what they do down the line. But yeah, for Danielson, the question is, how long is his contract for? I would have to say potentially, and this is, again, as I was mentioning just moments ago, I think potentially his contract is for about, a year and a half, maybe two at the most. And I think there's a good chance he'll either resign or transition to a backstage role there, or maybe he'll decide to go back to WWE to end his career. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. You never know. I mean, think about it this way: if you were in his shoes, and you're like, "Well, I'm very complimentary about WWE. I know that's not going to go over with a lot of folks, especially fans. So, what do I do? Do I stay with this company, knowing that some fans are still going to resent me possibly because of me being complimentary, or do I go back to WWE and end my career there?" Um, because I have a lot to be grateful to them for. Most honestly, if I was in Daniel's place, I would kind of weigh my options. Is what I would do. I would, after I get to the end of my contract with All Elite Wrestling, I would weigh my options, and I'd be like, okay, what's next? What would be the better solution for me financially and health wise? Because if there's one thing a lot of people are not very comfortable with is when Daniel was being complimentary about WWE and Vince. He said the reason Vince didn't let him do as much as he wanted, like it didn't let him go, all out, to coin a phrase, is because he didn't want him to get injured. He was very protective of him. And when obviously Vince is very protective of somebody, that shows that he, puts that person in high regard. Like, this is a guy I don't want to see get hurt. This is a guy I don't want to see end up, on the injured list, or have to be forced back into retirement like he was previously. So if I'm Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson, I might consider going back to where, someone wants to keep me protected and all that. Because as I was saying, the one thing that really felt, uneasy with Daniel saying that and then saying that Tony Khan's giving him the permission to go all out, go nuts kind of deal, is they feel what TK's doing, and a lot of people call him TK for short, is he's putting him in a situation similar to Matt Hardy. Like, you're going to let Daniel do all these things, and this is a guy that's been known for having injuries that have, at one time ended his career for the short period. So what are you trying to do? End his career permanently? So if there's anything, a lot of people, whether they liked, Daniel being complimentary of WWE or not, the one thing they can both agree that was unsettling, perhaps, was the fact that the comparison between Khan and McMahon, and the fact that McMahon was protective and Khan's like, go crazy. So we'll see what happens. I mean, if Daniel does get legitimately injured, not saying he will, that maybe that's what forces his hand. Maybe that's what forces his hand to say, look, I got hurt here or nearly injured here too many times, Tony. I appreciate the opportunity you gave me over these past year and a half, 2 years, but I'm going back to WWE where it's safe. And I think that's what's probably going to happen. If I want to keep myself healthy and protective, it's probably where I'm going to go. It's probably where I'll go. But we'll see what they do. We'll see what they do with him. As far as Adam Cole goes, I think him and Ruby Soho are in the same category. I think they're going to have, depending, because a lot of people perceive AEW as a niche company. I mean, the guys that are known, and I'm going to look up their name right now. The guys that are known as Technical Work Rate Productions, they're very critical at times, if not most times, of AEW. And basically, they look at AEW as being a niche company. They're like they're part of that group of fans that some people would say are WWE fanboys, or they don't get it kind of deal. Oh, and when it comes to AEW, top work rate productions is in that camp. They're in that category to where they feel AEW is a very niche company. Like, yeah, it's got its following. Yeah, it's got some positives to it, but how long is it going to be, around for? How long is it going to last is the question. And basically, when it comes to Adam Cole and Ruby Soho, and I just touched the mic there with my finger. I do apologize. When it comes to Adam Cole and Ruby Soho, they basically do see. If I'm not speaking for them, but if I was in their position, they'd probably see two individuals that are going to be with AEW till maybe the very end, perhaps, perhaps. Um, because of the fact that Cole's friends with the Elite, with the Bucks and the Omega and all them. Ruby Soho wants a little bit more freedom, and she pretty much, on the back of her jacket when she entered as the Joker in the Casino Battle Royal, had AEW plastered on the back of it. It's like, yeah, these two could be with the company for the long haul, but we'll see what how long that could be. I mean, their contracts could be like for 2 or 3 years. Who knows? Um, but if top but if TWR, as they call themselves, TWR was to look at it from their perspective, along with anybody else that shares the same opinions, they're probably looking at a couple of people that'll be there maybe with the company until it goes down, if you will, until it goes under from what they can see. But you know but here's the thing, we don't know if that's true or not. For all we know, Ruby Soho's contract could be for just like, let's say like a Bryan Danielson and a CM Punk. It could be for a year and a half or maybe a year. This way she could be like, see WWE, see what they let me do in AEW. Hey, now you want me back? I'll come back, but you gotta let me have my freedom. And maybe by that time, the WWE would be like, you know what? Let's give them the freedom. Everybody's saying we're not giving them freedom. Let's give them the freedom and see what happens. And maybe that will occur. Maybe Ruby will come back. She'll see that things have changed. She'll be like, yes, I got my freedom again. She can come out and do like shoot promos and be like, you know what? I went to AEW. They gave me some great treatment. I was their champ. And I used AEW, that pathetic little company, to get back in WWE because WWE number one. You never know. You never know what could happen in the next year or so. But to me, though, I would have to say that when Top Work Rate Productions, basically gives their thoughts on AEW All Out, which they already did, I could see them probably considering Cole and Soho being with the company for at least the long haul, at least a couple of years. But we'll see. We'll see what they do. We'll see what they do. We'll see what they do. But yeah, I think honestly the contracts, when it's all said and done, and I'll be right back. I told you she was going to call. Hello? I told you she was going to call. Told you she was going to call. She does that. It's always usually between 1:30 and 2 or 1:30 and 3. She just calls to check up on things mainly. She even did that when I used to work, if you will. I'm just checking to make sure my mic is adjusted. Run. Hold on, guys. Here we go. Just want to make sure the mic's adjusted. But yeah, I told you she was going to call. But and I had to get my soup anyway. Had to get my soup anyway. But anyway, getting back on topic here, and again, I do apologize for the interruption. Like I said, she was going to call, and I was right. Like I said, it was between 1:30 and 2 sometimes, 1:30 and 3 sometimes. But anyway, getting back on topic again, what was I? Oh yeah, the thing is with people like TWR and all them, they'll probably look at guys like people like Cole and Soho, and they'll probably look at them as people that could be there for the long haul, at least maybe a couple of years, at least or until, as they would project along with fans that are on the same campus them, until the company goes, gets to a certain point to where, people like Cole and Soho will be like, did we make the right decision years ago? Who knows? Um, but yeah, to me, when it comes to people like Bryan Danielson, aka Daniel Bryan, and CM Punk, I could see them being full time for at least a year, year and a half, maybe two. And I could see CM Punk transitioning to a backstage role with them as a trainer and a coach. And I can see Daniel doing the same thing, or even opting to go back to WWE to finish out his career and maybe even transition to a backstage role there. So I can see that. I can see that going either way. And as far as Cole and Soho go, I can see those two remaining with the company for the long haul, at least a couple of years until maybe, they decide, well, let's see how things are on the other side again to see if the grass has, improved, gotten greener, gotten back to what we were hoping it would be, and just go from there. Um, anyway, though, yeah, that's just my opinion on how long I think the contract status, for the Danielson and Punk and Cole and Soho are going to be with All Elite Wrestling. I think Danielson, in closing for this topic, I think Danielson and Punk are going to be a year and a half, maybe two at most, with both of them transitioning to a backstage role, maybe for AEW at the same time, or I could see Daniel being someone that's going to probably want to finish in WWE and maybe transition there because again his wife Bree works for them unless Bree gets let go, but I don't think they would let Bree go. They would have to let Nikki go at the same time. I don't think that'll happen. And as far as Cole and Soho go, I can see them being in the company for the long haul, at least a couple of years. And then maybe if they decide to go back to WWE, maybe hopefully by then you'll have people in WWE going like, you know what, Cole, Soho, we were wrong about what we did to you guys. We're gonna let you do what you want. We're gonna let you say what you want. We're gonna let you have the kind of matches you should have. So maybe that might be what they're gonna wait for. Who knows? But yeah, that's just my thoughts on that topic. So on to the second topic, and I do apologize for this going for the long haul. Like I said, I had a feeling my mom was going to call, and of course, I gave you the appetizer earlier, which I kind of fumble my words on a little bit because I was still kind of feeling the effects of over this past weekend. But number two, we're going to go to the number second topic, I should say, the number two topic